My approach to content creation is, if I were to define it with two things, I would say one is on the side of really making it meaningful. Okay, so that's something that I care deeply about. I always talk about how like most marketers see content just as like another marketing channel for their business, for their offer, for whatever they do. And it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like in a way it is, right? And so you have to understand that. But when you really start to think of yourself not just as like, I'm just going to make content just to promote my offer, which ultimately ends up making it kind of fall flat. And in today's day and age, like people can see right through that, and it's not engaging. Like people don't want to follow it. On the flip side of that, if you really start to see yourself as a creator, see yourself as somebody who creates content, not because like I need to do this marketing activity for my business, but because we live in a day and age where if you want to be building something, if you want to be doing anything, if you're the type of person that's entrepreneurial or that wants to grow or that has a vision, has a goal, has a dream, you've got to be creating content. You've got to become a creator. Like it's who you are, and honestly is it's who we have to be first and foremost, is somebody who's putting content out there. Now, when I talk about content, right now that might mean TikToks and reels and shorts and YouTube videos and tweets and stuff like that. Down the road, that may not be the case. Maybe it's holographic things or virtual reality, or we're communicating telepathically through Neuralink or something like that. Like content has evolved over time, but it's always been a thing. If you have a mission in the world, if you have something you're trying to build, something you're trying to grow, you've got to be able to get the message out there. And the way that you do that is through content, whether that's an ad in a newspaper, on a billboard, or a radio ad, or it's a TikTok or a reel, it's content. And so, when I think about it that way, is like as a personal brand, as a person who wants to do things in the world, like I have a deep desire to do that. And there's a lot of people, listening to this podcast who are the same way, right? You want to build, you want to create, you want to do things in the world. Nothing's going to be more advantageous to you in the long term than consistently creating content, right? And so that's the kind of the lens that I look at it through, rather than just kind of like, it kind of dictates, rather than just using like quick tips and hacks and stuff like that to try and like game the system and everything, and instead really thinking about it from a longer term vision, a longer term perspective, is this is something that I'm building throughout my lifetime, right? Over my entire life. That's going to make it more meaningful. So I would say that's the first thing. And then the second thing that I think probably differentiates me from some other people is I'm very heavily focused on systems. So in addition to wanting it to be meaningful, I'm also very cognizant of how much of my time it's taking. and like I don't want to, like when I say that you need to be a content creator, what I don't mean by that is that your entire life is consumed with social media. That to me is like, that's the opposite side of the problem. And so there are people out there who are, yes, like my job is to be an influencer. My job is to be a content creator. To me, I'm like, that's not what it is. That's not what my job is. Like the social media, the content, the marketing, like that is the tools, the vehicle for getting my message out there, for building my audience of people who relate to me, who know who I am, who agree with me on things, who are similar to me. And that's an audience that I'm just going to build over time of people as I connect with more people. It's social networking, by the way, right? And so if that's the goal, is to create that, not to have my life overrun with having to create content. Like I want to be able to go on vacation and not have to think about making videos about it, right? I like to just have time with my family, have time with my kids. I don't want my life to be overrun by it. And so systems are a really important part to me, and how I create content. And certainly what we help our clients with is figuring out like what systems can you create so that you can create meaningful, authentic content that is real, and it's you, and it's based in your purpose and your mission, and it's effective. It works. It does go viral. It does get the views. It is structured in a way that's engaging and it's interesting to people, but that also doesn't take up all your time. It is also systematized, at least somewhat, so that it is something that is scalable, that you can grow. And you can take, a one-man team, or maybe like a small skeleton team, and still produce content that exists, in multiple ways across all different platforms.
That's awesome. I love how you talk about systematizing all of that. And it really hits home with the idea of like return on investment, right? Because people can sit down and they can spend 20 hours creating a 60-second short, or they could do the same thing doing a long form video. But depending on who you are and the content you create, it has different results. So, what is kind of the sweet spot that you've found with the people that you've worked with for creating the best content for them and where they're at, but not putting them in a position where they can't go on vacation without having to make videos and things of that nature?
Yeah, there's like a few rules and boundaries that I set around my content, and I think this can be different for different people. But ultimately, like it starts with really understanding what you are trying to create content about, like on a deeper level. Okay, so I think a lot of people start out like, finding one thing that works, and you kind of focus in on that thing, and then it blows up and it works really well. Like that's certainly what happened for me. Um, and that starts working, but then at some point you start thinking, okay, well, like what message do I really want to share? What do I really care about? What am I trying to build here? And so when you start operating from that perspective, then that helps it to be meaningful, and it helps it to be, more effective for your brand. But then on top of that, then now it's building those systems to be able to do it. So as far as the boundaries that I set for myself, like one of the things that really like does not appeal to me is like when I'm going on a trip with my family, with my kids, and we're about to go somewhere, like there have been times where I'm like, now I'm thinking about, okay, we're going to be in this location. I got like, what videos can I create? Like, there's an opportunity to create content. I need to do this here. And I hate that. I'm just no, I'm on vacation right now. Right. I don't want to be thinking about this. And so the boundary for me is that like, I have to, whatever content I'm going to create, the type of content I'm going to create has to be able to be separated from my life. And it has to be systematizable. It has to be batchable, right? And it's not to say that every piece of content that I create is always batched. Sometimes I sit down and I go, oh, here's an idea that I had, and I'm in flow and I'm creative and I do it. In fact, sometimes that might happen while I'm on vacation. Like, I have this idea. Let's just go make a video real quick, right? If I'm feeling creative, like, let's go. But I'm not going into the vacation with the intention of it now being a work trip, right? And that's what I care about. So I'll be careful about that. And so I do a lot of like talking head style content where I'm teaching principles and ideas, and I do like sharing interesting ideas with people, and sharing my ideas, my opinions, my beliefs, my thought leadership, if you will, on things, or the way that I'm thinking about things and how it's unique from maybe how other people think about it. I do enjoy sharing that kind of stuff, and I like to do it ideally as much as possible in a batchable way. And so I'll sit down and, in a day we'll shoot 5 videos, or well, I mean, in a couple hours we'll shoot 5 videos or 10 videos or 15 or 20 videos or whatever, and then drip those out over time. And that, for me, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs who are busy, who have a lot going on, who have other priorities and things they need to be doing, we find that works really well for our clients, is to develop a routine for when you sit down to create content, to do it in a way that's very powerful and meaningful and it works, but also is, batch where you're shooting 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 videos at the same time, so that it's not something that you're having to be on and doing all the time. It's kind of a once a month or twice a month ordeal.
Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.